Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Supercharged CL175 build. As you can see from the first clip in the video, we are finally going to put a seat on this thing, which I'm super happy about because riding it right now is extremely uncomfortable. But before we jump into that, I have a couple updates on the bike. First, the most obvious one being we finally have a new set of tires for this thing. So no more dirt bike tires. We actually have a nice pair of road tires. So these are Bridgestone Battle X BT46s, I believe. Yeah, Battle X BT46s. So these are the highest rated speed tire I could find, which is H rated, so 130 mile an hour. But since we're using a tube, it knocks us down one, so 124 is the top speed they're rated for. So that'll be fine for us for probably a while. But yeah, they're 90/90 18s front and rear. It's for this size tire, or for this size rim, the 18-inch rim, it's hard to find high speed rated tires. But yeah, we got those on and I took it for a ride around the block yesterday and it's smooth as glass now. It's really, really nice. Huge upgrade. The second thing we figured out is our crank signal issue. So if you guys remember back a couple of videos ago when we wrote it, we were having issues where it would not go. It was breaking up at 8,000 RPM. It just would hit 8 grand and we'd lose crank signal. So I contacted the company that I bought the crank sensor from, and they went over the usual things like gap and mounting and tooth geometry and stuff like that. And they couldn't really pinpoint the issue, so they said, go ahead and change it over to 12 volt instead of 5 volt supply. And as soon as I swapped it to 12 volt, this thing revs to the moon without any issues. So I'm extremely happy about that. That was kind of the last big roadblock we were facing before we could really take this thing out and see what it's capable of. But today, like I said, we're going to start working on the seat. So right now I just have a cardboard, I guess, mock-up in place. Since this is a race bike, I don't want to make it anything crazy. It doesn't need to be super comfortable, just light and a little bit of padding on it so I'm not sitting on the frame rails. Other than that, our main goals are to keep it light and simple. So this quick mock-up is kind of a general idea of what I'm going for. We're going to make it in 2 pieces. This pan here out of the corrugated cardboard I'm going to make out of aluminum, and then our tail section, I think I'm just going to go ahead and 3D model it and print it. I know guys could probably make it out of metal really quickly, but I don't really have the tools here to do kind of complex geometries. I know it doesn't seem very complex, but for me it is. So my skill set is more so in 3D modeling, and I know I can 3D model this in like 15 minutes and it'll just be quicker that way. 3D printing it will take a while, but I know I can get the geometry exactly how I want by 3D modeling it. So that being said, I'm going to start. I'll jump on the computer and we'll get something whipped up and throw it on the printer and get it going. All right, guys, I tried screen recording me modeling this, but the computer was running so slow. So, but here's the final thing, or draft one, I should say. It's just pretty much a duplicate of what we did on the bike, just as a 3D model. So I'm going to go ahead and get this printing. It's going to take about 10 hours, and we'll go from there. Okay, so fresh off the printer, about 10 hours later, it's actually the next day, but we have something that resembles a tailpiece. So right off the rip, I can tell that this is a little bit too boxy for me, but it gives me a general idea of kind of a starting point. So you can see, let's see if this, yeah, general shape. Again, I just used the cardboard template as a general guide. But yeah, it's not bad. It's a little bit bigger than I had wanted, and like I said, a little bit too boxy. I think we're also going to shorten it up a little bit, and like I said, round it off and make a few little changes. I also have to make some mounting points where it mounts to the seat pan. Okay, jumping into the future a little bit. So this is our first iteration, our first draft of our tail section, just something pretty simple. So this is our most recent iteration. I'm really happy with this. I actually think this is going to be the one we go with. You can see I've already started sanding on it a little bit. Like I said, we shortened it up, rounded off some of the edges, gave it some compound curves, and on the inside, you can see we had some ribbing for strength, and then these are going to be our mounting points. So these will fit M6 nuts that all epoxy in, and then we can bolt our seat pan to it. So let me show you what it looks like on the bike. All right. Yeah, I'm much happier with that. I'll have to shorten. We'll make a more permanent template for the seat pan, but that'll come down a little bit. So I think our next steps are, I can either sand the tail section, get that painted, or we can work on our actual seat pan, which is probably the right route. Yeah, make the seat pan, make sure it bolts up to the tail section the way we want, and then we can worry about finishing everything up. Okay, so I have my material here for the seat pan. This is 3003 aluminum. I tend to either use 3000 series or 5052 if I'm going to be bending it. You can bend 6061, but it has a tendency to crack if you use too tight of a bend radius. So it's just easier to use 3000 series or 5000 series. All right, so here's where we're at this point. Got the main pan cut out, bent up, holes drilled for the bolts to bolt onto the tail section. There's nuts in those little standoffs in there, holding everything together. Weighs next to nothing, which is great. So the next thing we gotta do is figure out how to mount this to the bike. And I'm just gonna keep it simple. I know some people make like quick release latches and stuff like that, but I'm not too worried about it. I think we're just gonna use a couple bolts, probably one here, and I already have a little cross brace here that I can put a riv nut into, and I'll probably just weld a little bracket across here for another one. We'll be good to go. So I haven't talked about these on the channel before, but I'm going to be using something called a riv nut, and I use it when, for instance, here I only have an 1/8 inch of material and I want to use an M8 bolt. So you're only going to get a couple threads into this. So I'm going to use a riv nut instead, which I'll drop in that hole. I'll compress it. As you can see in there, there's a bunch of threads, and essentially gives me a threaded hole without using, welding a nut on the back or anything like that. So all you do is, I have this little tool here. I open it up, thread my insert onto the end of it, put it in our hole. There we go. Threaded hole. So I'm gonna add another support bar right back here. We'll do the same thing and we'll bolt our pan on. Okay, we got our second bar put in with our rib nut. So we have both of them now. So now we have to transfer the placement of those to the actual seat pan itself. And I think the easiest way to do that is going to be using these. So these are just bolts that I've sharpened. And I'm going to thread them up from the bottom, like you see here. And I'm going to have them so they're not quite sticking out just yet. And then I'll tape the seat down where I want it, and I'll tighten these until they're pushing up on the aluminum, and I'll tap it down, and that should transfer the exact location of our mounting points. Okay, so you can see we have one little indent here and another one right here. All right, it's coming together pretty good. Got it bolted down. It's pretty solid. It feels way better already than sitting on the frame rails. I am gonna cut each of these little tabs off. I hate this. So what I'm gonna do is just print a piece to kind of come up and cover this transition just to make it a little bit better looking. Now the last thing we have to do before we paint it is make a cushion. So how I'm gonna do that is, this is drafting film, and it's nice because it's pretty see-through, so it's easy to make templates out of. So we're gonna use this to make our templates for the base cushion, I guess you can call it, and then the back cushion. And what we're gonna use for our cushioning is this just fatigue mat, pretty cheap stuff from Harbor Freight, but it'll work for our needs. We're going for lightweight, but still will give us a little bit of comfort, I guess. All right, guys, I hate to jump so far ahead, but I had to finish the seat off camera. We had a test and tune at the local drag strip last Sunday that I wanted to get the bike to, so I ended up finishing this off camera so we could make it to that. So since I last filmed, we got the foam glued down. To glue down this foam, I use something called headliner adhesive. You can get it from Joann Fabrics, and I use it for all my seats, and it works really, really well. So I glued down the bottom with that, and the back is just held on with magnets, so I can get to these bolts back here to take the tail off if I ever need to. But yeah, I threw a little bit of paint on the 3D print. I did some filler primer and sanded it, but I need to sand it down again and put some probably Bondo in to fill the rest of the gaps. But it's fine for now. Then I threw our Rick's Motorsports sticker on it. We'll put that somewhere else in the future, but I wanted to make sure I had it on it when we were at the track since they're nice enough to sponsor us. But yeah, I think it turned out really nice. Like I said, my goal was just lightweight and simple, and I think we achieved that. I still have to make a little cover for this transition so that doesn't look so shit. But yeah, other than that, we kind of have a finished bike, which is shocking to think about after a couple of years. But yeah, the next video I think will actually be a drag strip video, not what we did this past Sunday. We were only able to make a couple hits and weren't able to really change much from the last video of me riding it. So the next video, I think we're going to go over to a 1/4 mile drag strip and change out pulley sizes and see how much boost we can make and go from there. All right, but as usual, guys, I appreciate you watching. The sport is awesome as usual. But until next time, have a good one.